and openness, the energy that we want to put forth, Dr. Shel and I this morning. If you can, just turn on your cameras, give yourself the gift of this hour for yourself. We're totally okay with you not wearing makeup, having your coffee chai in your hands, like just be you. But give yourself that space of just being present and giving yourself that space of no distractions. And everyone can wait for you for an hour. I promise you that. So come on in. We're happy to have you. Good morning. And I would love for you just to take the chat and say, like, hi, my name is from where? Like, where are you from? Just if you can just take a moment to introduce yourself. We'd love to see where you're coming from and just see who is showing up today.
Oh, we have a shy audience.
Yes, don't be shy. We're not shy. We'll open you guys up. I promise you that.
Right.
So, Dr. Shell, what are you most excited about today before we begin?
For me, it's all about connection, right? So it's not really about just me speaking or you speaking. It's about all of us connecting and just being there for each other as empowered women and helping each other through this beautiful journey called life.
Amazing. Absolutely. Yes, me too. And it's really interesting. So I have this platform, and I'll talk about the platform in just a moment deeper. But I have folks here from my Empowered Desi platform, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then obviously there are people in here that are not from the Empowered Desi platform. So we're super excited to have you. And the energy here we want to bring forth is like, for me, it's really about possibility, like something bigger than what is, something bigger than what we've told ourselves what is, and just allowing a space. I think a lot of times as women, we need that space to go
Right.
deeper. We need that space for exploration. We need that space to be open. And we want to just create that safe space here with transparency. We're going to go deeper. We're going to be open. Really resonated with me. Dr. Shell and I just met a few weeks ago after IPN, and just we really connected. And we have similarities in our stories, and there's some parts of our stories that are different. But more importantly, there was this energy of like being open, being transparent, not connecting on a shallow surface level. And I think that's really what, I really connected with you so deeply, Dr. Shell. And that's exactly the energy that I want to bring into this community, into this platform, into this space. So happy you all are here. So those of you that are coming in, just say good morning. Just introduce yourself in the chat. Hi, my name is Karishma from Dallas. And just give yourself that space. And we're going to start in just one moment. I know a lot of people are just trickling right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would really just say that, Karishma, you've been doing such an amazing job, and the feeling is truly mutual. When we met at IPN and shortly thereafter, one of the things that I think both of us connected on is our vulnerability to be open and
Mhm.
honest and share. We all have our own unique journeys and our unique experiences, and we can all really share those and learn from each other with the different things that we've been through. So, I think what's really important is, like you said, openness. And that's why we are completely, excited, but also would invite you to just take a moment and just breathe. And Karishma, maybe we can start with like 30 seconds or 60 seconds of just grounding and connection so we can all just be present, be here, and set the intention.
I love it. Let's do it. Perfect. And you read my mind. So I love that we're just so in resonance this morning. So everyone, will just take a deep breath and just close your eyes. I promise you nobody is watching you. Everyone's focused on themselves. And if you can just put your feet flat on the ground and just connect to your heart. This is how we start connecting with who we are. And just taking a deep breath into our heart. If you need to put your hand on your heart, feel free to connect even more. And just take a deep breath in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale all the way out. Breathing in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale all the way out. And then now I just want you to imagine just taking that energy, your focus, to the top of your head. They call this the crown. chakra, and just taking that energy, your focus, top of your head, and just moving that focus almost like there's this beautiful ball of golden yellow light going down the back of your head slowly, landing into the back of your neck, moving down your upper back, middle back, lower back, just resting at that base of your spine, moving down your legs slowly, your thighs, the back of your knees, your ankles, your feet. Again, putting your feet flat on the ground if you can, moving that energy all the way down from the bottom of your feet to the center of earth, almost as if you're connecting right into the middle of earth. And just feeling that restorative, beautiful, grounding, loving Mother Earth energy, moving from that into the soles of your feet, the back of your legs, moving up into the base of your spine, middle of your back, your neck, the back of your head, all the way up, connecting it back to the crown, and just almost feeling this beautiful warmth that's just connecting you to God, to love, to light, and then just bring your focus back into your heart and just practice being here in your heart. And this is how we start living through our heart, start living through our soul, start living into the truth of who we really are. So, with that, everyone can open our eyes. Thank you so much for joining me on that little exercise to just be grounded, be present. And let's begin. So I'm going to invite you all to just save your questions for the end. The format of this is that Dr. Shel and I will be going back and forth for probably about 30, 40 minutes. I have some questions. I really want to go deeper into her journey, which is incredible journey. And any questions that you have, save them towards the end. We will be having an interactive Q&A component at the very, very end. So just allow yourself to again be present, be focused, just listen to the words of wisdom that will be dropped today, and you will definitely have an opportunity to go deeper. So, welcome everyone to this Empowered Desi platform. And this is a platform that I founded. Karishma is my name. I live in Dallas, Texas. Attend Plano Jamaat Kana for those of you that are Smiley. And, this intention for this platform was to create a space for women to be vulnerable, to be real, to be honest, where we can go deeper into challenges around business, career, into challenges with our relationships, challenges with our health. I started this community back in November. And just a little bit about me, I'm a business coach. I'm an executive coach. I've been coaching for 7 years in my own business called Live Your Legacy. I have 20 years of training development background. I'm a mom of teenage twins living in North Dallas. I'm a speaker. I'm a podcast host of my Happily Divorced with Karishma podcast. And, Empowered Desi was really intended to connect biweekly for women to connect deeply through our own experiences. And it's for women that really want to break through those lineage narratives, to do the inner work, to start showing up powerfully within ourselves so we can really claim that life that we're meant to have. And, I'll talk about Empower They See at the very end of our call. But essentially, if you are ready to do the work, to liberate yourself. You know that you're living your life. You feel like there's something more to life than this. I want something more than this. I want to be happy. I want to be free. You don't know what that means, but there's a desire inside of your heart to do that. Empowered They See is a space exactly for that, for women that are tired of carrying those expectations, the years of silence, the pressures that come with our culture, our generation conditioning. And, again, this is why one of the intentions when Dr. Shell and I connected and we had the opportunity to connect about our own stories, there was such a similarity of like that weight of being perfect, being everything for everyone. And, that's been a big part of both of our journeys. And I just wanted to, without further ado, just invite you all to just connect with me deeper after this conversation. And we're going to dive right in. So I'm pleased to invite Dr. Shell here today into this fireside chat. Dr. Shalina Lalji is the founder of Dr. Shel Wellness and Aesthetic Center. She's served the greater Sugar Land area for over 20 years. She's an honor graduate from Emory University, board certified OBGYN, who's devoted her full-time practice now to aesthetics and wellness medicine. We'll talk about her journey into functional medicine in just a few minutes. But Dr. Shel really believes in that connection between kind of that art of beauty and really more importantly the wellness component. And she's really committed and dedicated her entire life to helping her patients live up to their fullest potential. And again, we're so excited to be here today. We're going to talk about, really supporting you, what it looks like to show up in that embodiment of that version that God intends for us to be, what it looks like to really use self-love, self-awareness to be a catalyst for this exciting journey inward. And we're going to go right in. And thank you so much, Dr. Shell, for being here today. I'm so happy to have you. It means so much to me
Wonderful to be
personally.
here. Thank you
Yes.
for.
So, Dr. Shell, a lot of people here may or may not know about your journey. And I would love to, before we even go into the medical piece and kind of the functional meds and all the transitions that have happened in your professional journey, I really want to start with you, the woman that's been behind it. And just a few years ago, not too long ago, you were building a very successful practice. You were building a family. You were an international speaker. You're writing books. You're inspiring women. And by every measure, you are succeeding. So tell us a little bit about the woman underneath all of that.
Yeah, sure. Great question. You know, life goes in phases, right? We all know that there are going to be great times, difficult times, challenging times, and then times for growth and spiritual connection with self. So the time period that, you're asking me about, Karishma, that was a version of me where the world saw me and celebrated all of the things that were going on. And to be very frank, it was one that I was truly grateful for because that woman, she was accomplished, she was disciplined, she was deeply committed to excellence in her work, her family, her impact, her mission. Yes, I was building a thriving practice, was raising a family with my beautiful children, Zoe and Sade, speaking on the global stages, writing, creating, producing, giving, and holding space for the women that I was serving over the last 30 years. And it was such a beautiful time. It was something that I felt like I was trying to really wear gracefully because it was a magical time for us. I is my late husband, and we'll discuss that journey in a little bit, but he was the love of my life. He was somebody that I put my dreams together with, and we did a lot of this together. I met him at 29. We dated literally for 3 months before he asked me to marry him,
Wow.
and we were married in 9 months. So it was just a spiritual connection. We just knew we were meant to be together. And it was a time when we really explored our inner missions and we connected at that level, which is why it became such a great partnership for us. It was a time when we were taking care of family. My in-laws lived with us for 20 years since the day I got married. We were supporting my parents and we were supporting our children and the community. So it was a great time, and I really felt like it was God's gift to us because it had truly been a long, arduous road to get there. Um, so rewind a little bit as I was about to enter medical school. I was 20, and my brother, who was 25 at the time, was actually shot and killed in front of my mother's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when something like that happens, it shakes you to your core. You realize that youth does not guarantee life, right? And you realize how precious these gifts are. Fast forward a couple of years, my best friend from med school and residency took a gun and shot herself and committed suicide. Um, and that was really jolting because here was a woman who was on top of her world and was an allergist, immunologist, gorgeous. Everything was going for her, but her husband asked for a divorce. And she just felt lost and she didn't know where to go for support, which is why you and I do this work. We want women to know that there are places for support. So all these losses happened, and then I got to this phase that we're talking about, which just felt like a phase of a gift. So that phase was just beautiful. It's what some might call the golden years, where I was in that phase to just rejoice and rejuvenate and reconnect with my loved ones and my greater purpose. It was a wonderful decade and a half.
Perfect. And I just love like the mindset that you're exuding here, right? Because it's so easy to get lost in that woe is me, and I don't want to undermine the trauma. Like there's a lot of trauma that comes with loss and a lot of pain that comes with loss. But at the same time, you use that as an opportunity, or that was the opportunity that was presented to really align with your purpose. And death sometimes, I think of COVID, a lot of us had huge epiphanies in our life during COVID, what was working, what wasn't working, right? Death and dying is this big workshop that makes us see the truth of what is. So it's amazing that you were kind of given those lessons at such an early age. And
Yes.
that's quite a lot to come into your 20s and 30s with. So
Yes.
tell us about, so now you are, and you're both doctors, you're both got these practices. And then tell us about this ALS, this earth-shattering news, and tell us about that journey for you, what happened, and what was sort of happening within you during that time as well.
Right. No, really good question. So, just to paint the picture of what we just did, things were great, shook her. Everything was not everything. Of course, life has its own challenges on a day-to-day basis, but it was a good time. But then nothing really prepares you, Karishma, for the moment when your life stops feeling like something you're living and it starts feeling like something you're trying your very best to survive.
Mm.
I remember thinking at the time, I don't get to fall apart right now because what had just happened was such a shattering experience. I was just in the midst of my practice, seeing my patients, my husband's practice. We had 9 dental practices, and he practiced in the practice right next to me to paint that picture. He walks into my office, and we used to eat lunch together every day. So he walks in and he goes, Shel, I need you to sit down. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's for lunch? And he goes, no, I need to talk to you. So he said, Shel, I think I have ALS. And I was like, wait, excuse me, what did you just say? And and so that was the first bomb because he could see, little fasciculations all over his body. We knew, unfortunately, about ALS because his uncle also had ALS. And I said, Ayaz, we're jumping to conclusions. There's about 12 different reasons for benign fasciculations. Let's get to the neurologist's office. We did all that. Fast forward, initially it was just, whipped away. No, it's not ALS, it's something else. So we start praying. Let it be anything else. Let it be a brain tumor. Let it be anything but this devastating illness that robs your entire body of every single function, nerve by nerve, muscle by muscle, limb by limb, where you are left with a complete sense of being present. So your brain is completely there, but your body completely fails you and you have no function left whatsoever. So in our minds, we were like, okay, please let it be anything but that. We're 2 doctors. We can do this. We can find a reason. There's nobody better to try to figure this out. Well, I whisked him away to Mayo Clinic at the earliest chance that I got. And I remember sitting in the room with about 4 doctors after they've done 3 days of testing. And they say, we need to tell you that this is ALS and you have 6 to 9 months to live.
Oh my goodness.
And if you can just imagine, I am 49 at that point. Ayaz is 51. Our kids are 16 and 13.
Mm.
And just the bomb was just laid on us. Our earth, our universe just was shattered. However, I knew at that moment I did not get to fall apart
Mm.
because ALS doesn't give you that luxury. It is a freight train that hits you and takes it all away quickly. And for my husband, it was one of the most rapidly progressing ALS that even Mayo Clinic had seen. So I remember seeing myself from the top, and I'm like visualizing this woman who has words coming out of her mouth, and am out of my body at this point. And this woman says to the doctors very clearly in a very strong voice, I will accept the diagnosis, but I will not accept the prognosis.
Mm.
I looked at this woman and said, okay, let's do this, right? And then I'm thinking, how the heck are you going to do this? But what happens then is that everything shifts. When my husband, Ayaz, got diagnosed, everything shifted almost to a primal mode of protection. You think, okay, he was this, this great man, great husband, trying to, you know, do this life together with him. And he's got this sense of protecting me and the kids in certain ways. And now I'm the protector. I became the one who held the information, the one who stayed strong in the room, the one who translated the medicine, made the decisions, absorbed all the fear, and had to carry the hope day in, day out, because somebody had to be hopeful. So, all of that, doing all of that, there is a particular kind of pain in loving someone so deeply and knowing that you can not truly save them. You can try your absolute best, which I did for 7 years, but all of the blocks are stacked against you because there has never been a cure to this disease. They've studied it for 90 years now. No cure and no real treatments that work. So I advocated, I researched, I showed up with everything that I had, and I just dug into myself, my faith, my intuition, my belief, and more than anything, my love for him, my love to care for him, sorry, and to give him the dignity that every human being deserves until the last moment. But truly, we were so blessed. We had 7 years instead of 6 months. And it was such a grateful journey, and it was such a grace-filled journey because the love that we experienced was not just the physical or the emotional, it was spiritual, where we learned to communicate just with our eyes and our heart. And that's a love that not many are blessed with because this is the earth. We have, who's going to pick up the kids, who's going to make dinner, who's going to do this. And that love just happened in the quiet spaces. So I will say, Karishma, he was able to see his, daughter graduate high school, his son graduate high school, his daughter get into college, graduate, his son get into college. He was there for the first relationships they had. He was there for the highs, the lows. He was there, and we celebrated 25 years of marriage. So we have so much gratitude that God blessed us with this time that was incredibly precious and incredibly heartfelt. So that was,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible. And for those of us that don't know what ALS looks like or what like the symptoms, can you just and thank you for being so honest. I hope this is not too hard a question. But
Yes.
towards the very end, what was like physically happening in his body? Can you just give us a context for those of us that don't know specifically what ALS looks like or what that progression looks like downward?
Sure. A lot of people know what Alzheimer's looks
Hmm.
like. This is
Yeah.
almost the opposite. So in Alzheimer's, your body is functioning, but your brain is not able to be there. In ALS, it's the opposite. Your brain
Mm.
is fully functioning, but your body betrays you.
Mm.
And so towards the end, for any person who has lived with ALS and gotten to very advanced stages, you are unable to eat by yourself. You are unable to eat at all. You are unable to move any muscle of your body, including even a finger. You are unable to communicate, speak. You are unable to even breathe. And that's what takes you at the end, is the inability to breathe.
Okay. Thank you. And okay, so, again, kind of going to this deeper, so you are a doctor and he is a doctor and you are supposed to have the answers, right? The medical profession is supposed to have the answers to help ail most things. And here you befall this ailment that literally has no cure. And it's interesting because you talked about this whole out of body experience where you had, and I think some of us can relate to that, where sometimes, like internally, you're so afraid of falling apart, you almost put on that brave face, that mask even more, like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be the protector. I'm going to figure this out. Like, not figuring it out is not a possibility. Not being weak is not a possibility. So tell us about like in those moments between that strength that came up, right? This out of body strength that came up, that almost mask that came out to protect you, where you became the protector. You had to take care of him in this debilitating, illness, plus the practices, plus having teenage children. There's so much weight associated with that. Tell us about those little cracks where you actually allowed yourself to feel the
Mm.
powerlessness, allowed yourself to feel the weight of this huge disease that is so much bigger than anything you could control. Tell us about those little cracks and how this may have possibly led to the next diagnosis that
Mm.
came into your life that was really about you. Tell us about that.
So I think that, and this is a really important question, I think, because a lot of us women, we are under this belief system that we can handle it all.
Mhm.
And even if we cannot handle it all, it is expected of us. There's mountains of expectations on us, and we justify it, we rationalize it. We say, well, of course I have to do this because who else will? And that's how I was feeling. And I don't know if I would feel very different if I had to do it again. I would do it a little differently. So let me expand. You still feel, and I still felt, I was a single parent at that point because we were focused, he was focused on healing, and that's where I wanted his focus to be. So raising the kids, running 9 dental practices, running my functional medicine practice, looking for cures, researching, taking him places, and putting the treatments in place, and really trying to manage it all together and keep the family together so that my kids don't go into a very dark place, and Ayaz doesn't either. So where was Shell in all this? At that point, Shell was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night, literally, hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes, of consultations, of research, of collaboration, etc. And all of that, what was happening in the background, this individual was grieving, right? So I was going through anticipatory grief. I knew what the doctors had basically told us, and the grief happens on a daily basis because
Mhm.
one function is lost almost daily, is what it seemed like. But there was no place to put it. I didn't have space to fall apart. I was already holding so much grief that hadn't even fully landed yet. And I think that's the part that people don't talk about. When life hits you like that, you don't process it in real time. You store it. And I started storing it in my body, in my nervous system, in my silence, in this this hope that I had to have, and in this almost toxic positivity that I had to have, or I felt like I had to have for my family. From the outside, I still looked like I was managing. I
Mhm.
was still showing up, I was still working, I was still functioning, still providing that compassionate care for my husband and holding space and raising my kids. But inside, something was unraveling, not dramatically, not visibly, but very quietly. And the truth is, I've been unraveling for a long time. I just had gotten very good at it, at not feeling it, at not pausing long enough to allow myself to hear it, at confusing my strength with actual suppression of my emotions, and not really realizing that this was incredibly difficult for me, for that inner child that was in that corner crying her eyes out because this is not the life that she had imagined. And that life was completely falling apart.
Mhm.
It was a life where I was deeply needed, but I was not deeply nourished by myself or, truly by myself. Others tried to nourish me. My mother, my sisters, my dear friends, they tried. But it was just like, I don't have time. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time. I'll eat whatever is left over because I got to save this man's life. This is the love of my life, father of my kids. So while I was extraordinary at caring for others, I was disconnected from my own needs. I was
Beautiful.
surviving beautifully, but not living.
Thank you. And I'm going to pause right there. So, okay. Whew. I think all of us kind of felt that, right? So, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I really want to, talk about here. One is so many of us, I think, are so guilty of just going through the motions, right? And, again, that view that we have of ourselves to be the strong ones, to be the ones keeping it together in our family life, in our professional life, with the kids, with the spouse, with our parents, as the sisters. There's such a huge weight that every one of us women
Mhm,
has, and how many of us actually slow down enough
mhm.
to just feel, because you talked about disconnection, not allowing yourself to feel the feelings.
Right.
How many of us actually allow ourselves to just be like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. Oh my God, I'm so exhausted. And it's, in this society that we live in, we're seen as we give everyone a gold medal when they are that martyr, they are that savior, they are that person keeping their stuff together, right? Burnout is like, okay, it's there, and you push through the burnout. And this is the toxic mindset that we have in our society where it's almost like we're not even allowed to go there because going there, admitting the
Right.
humanity of it is actually seen as a weakness, actually seen as something that's negative versus, and exactly you mentioned, you nailed it on the head, Dr. Shell, of like giving yourself that nourishment. And, for me too, I mean, kind of having gone through a divorce, having gone through massive transitions in my life, and
Mhm.
I can too relate to being so disconnected, being so focused on being that perfect mom, that perfect wife, that perfect, professional, all the things. But underneath it, if we don't allow ourselves to connect deeply within ourselves and give us that nourishment from the
Right.
inside out, it does. And I can tell you this as someone who's gone through burnout, gone through like, and supported, hundreds of clients now through this burnout. Our bodies store all of that emotion. Our bodies store all of that energy. And at some point, that strength and just, putting that brave girl mask on and just trudging through it, at
Yeah.
some point, it doesn't work anymore. So what happened with you physically, where
Yeah.
those cracks with that energy built up, those emotions showed up, and what sort of manifested next in your journey, in your body?
Right. What manifested was the lesson that I believe God and the universe needed me to learn. And that lesson was a lesson of self-care and self-love. So this is what happened. It was 2 years into the journey. I will never forget the date. It was October 6th. And I just was meditating. And that's one thing that I did continuously and consistently do, even if it was for 5 minutes. And I was connecting with my higher being. And I got this desire to just go for a mammogram. Who the heck had time for a mammogram, right? It had been over a year since my last one. And I said, you know what? Let me just go get a mammogram. Something doesn't feel right in my body. And again, the point that I'm going to make, and we can talk about it later, is intuition and
Mhm.
listening to your divine when it whispers to you. But we have to be quiet long enough to do that. So I go for my mammogram, and most of you women who've had a mammogram know you're in this dressing room, you're wearing this flimsy little gown, and you're standing and looking at this little mirror. And I remember looking at this mirror and I say to myself, and I pray, I actually pray, and I said, God, some women are going to get a tough diagnosis this week. Please stay with them and please give them the strength of healing. And I went in, got my thing done, left the mammogram, went to pick up my kiddo. So I was in carpool line, and the radiologist is a good friend of mine. He calls me and he says, Shell, what are you doing right now? And I said, oh, just in carpool. What's going on? He's, I need you to come back. We need to do a little more imaging. And I said, okay, I'll see you next week. I can't do it this week. And he said, no, you're not listening to me. I need you to come back today. And I said, Puneet, what are you seeing? He goes, can you please just come back?
Mhm.
Okay, it's hard to just say yes, right? So I go back in, biopsy, fast forward. Yes, it is breast cancer. And I remember getting that pathology result back. And I remember thinking, I am not surprised. And who thinks that, right? Who actually thinks that I am not surprised when they get a breast cancer diagnosis? Well, I had practiced functional medicine at this point for about 15 years and practiced medicine for about 25. I knew that all of this grief, all of this pain, all of these emotions that I was bearing and suppressing were being stored in my body as inflammation. And inflammation is the core that leads to chronic diseases, whether it be cancer, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, etc. So when I got that diagnosis, there was a part of me that wanted to fall apart. And then there was a part of me that just said, okay, this is here to teach me something. And that wouldn't have been me 2 years before that, before the ALS diagnosis. That would not have been me. I would have come home and told my healthy husband if that would have happened, oh my God, Ayaz, what are we going to do? This is the end of the world. To me, it was just like, okay, what is it trying to teach me? Now, that was a woman that has evolved in the 2 years. That was not a woman that was there before ALS. However, in the quiet moments, to be perfectly honest, I had lots of tears. I had moments of complete breakdown. I had moments of questioning. I had moments of reckoning with what is going on with me, my husband, my family. And then what made me cry the most was imagine a 16 and an 18-year-old, that's how old my kids were at that time, having one parent with a death sentence with ALS and another parent who just got diagnosed with breast cancer. And at that point, you think to yourself, what cost, at what cost did I completely dissolve myself over the last 2 years with zero self-care? At what cost? And that was what happened. That was the next phase of the journey. But I will tell you, during that phase of the journey, there was a lot of gratitude because I was able to go through surgery, chemo, radiation, and I was able to go through it, and I was able to have incredible support of my family, my close friends, my community, my patients even. And there were times when I had to choose. Am I going to come back from chemo? Do I go throw up first, or do I go suction my husband's ventilator first?
Mm.
And these were just, moments, and I can't describe a 7-year journey to you in 30 minutes, but these were the moments, the kind of moments that teach you when God gives you extreme difficulty, He also gives you astounding amount of stress and support and kindness and love and the community. And it was just, to be very frank, it's giving me goosebumps right now because I remember all the people that were there for us, and it was just beautiful.
That's amazing. Um, and I can't even imagine. My twins are 14, so I can't even imagine going through that and feeling like my children might not have a parent or and I think those gifts of those responsibilities, right, in the best way almost teach us, and you nailed it, right? What is the cost? At what cost am I going to put myself through more and put myself last in lieu of what's happening? So, and I want to talk about the functional medicine and kind of that piece in a moment, kind of burnout and like what's happening in our bodies in a moment. So everyone just bear with us here, but this is so important. So, because of these lessons that you had and because of these, and they weren't whispers. They were full-fledged like here's like a truth
Yeah.
bomb here and here's a truth bomb there, right? There's all these
Right.
huge things that are happening. What was that shift, that pivot within yourself? Like, what did that look like kind of pre-breast cancer
Yeah.
diagnosis
Yeah.
into post, even kind of going through the recovery journey that you've been on? What's like been that shift within you today that the lessons that you've chosen to take on and actually practice every day? What does that look like today?
Well, so many lessons, but the one that I'll talk about today is it truly took the breast cancer to teach me what I needed to learn. And that
Mm,
was true self-prioritization, true self-love, true self-care without, I call guilt this five-letter word that kills women. Okay. When women feel guilty about taking care of themselves, we all are, we're opening ourselves up to more difficulties happening in our lives. And I started asking myself this very, very vital question that I want to share with you all. How much is it hurting me? And how much is it helping him or them or whoever this person is or whoever the thing is that you're trying to do this with? If it's hurting you this much and helping them this much, well, you don't do it because
mm,
you too are just as important, equally as important, if not more. Because again, it's the oxygen mask, right? You have to put it on yourself if you want to do anything for anybody else. So to be hyper functioning, you can function, you can be hyper functioning, but if you're not really thriving emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, you will fall apart. It's a matter of time because you're in cortisol overload, your adrenals are shutting down, you are in neuroendocrine failure, your hormonal health is completely crashing, your thyroid may not work as well because your cortisol is not working well. All of these things are happening. And you have to then focus on how am I going to, yes, take care of everybody that's depending on me and needs me while I sustain myself and try to thrive in my own way. And that was the biggest lesson. And what I have learned, Karishma, is it is all about balance. And the balance is not easy. It's definitely difficult and challenging, but it takes time to reach within and to connect and check in with yourself daily. How am I doing? How am I really doing? What do I need? What is my body trying to tell me? What is my mind trying to tell me? And what is my soul trying to tell me? Is it being fed the way that I'm trying to feed everybody else? And these questions I ask on a daily basis. And it's not easy because it takes time. But really, it just takes 5 to 10 minutes of journaling, sitting with your journal, or sitting with something that you can be honest with and completely vulnerable with yourself. So that is really, really crucial. It's a lesson I learned, and I've now taken that lesson. So that was 2019. We're in 2026. It has allowed me to heal, to recover, to deal with my grief and my loss. As you know, I did lose my beloved husband about 18 months ago. And it's allowed me to get through that grief and still going through it, but it's helping me on the journey of going through that time period where I check in with myself. And if I need a little trip out of town with some girlfriends, I do that. If I need to be solo, I do that. If I need to be with my children, I do that. If I need to go to Jamaat Khana, I do that. I do whatever my heart, my soul, and my body is asking for. So it's about listening.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're so sorry for your loss. I know every one of us feels that way. It's interesting. So I'm going to take kind of, you're talking about the health perspective. I'm going to take kind of the business perspective. So I've been privileged in my journey to support many entrepreneurs in growing and scaling their businesses. And one of the first things we do is really like I've is to really teach them to put themselves first, to start saying no to that voice of guilt and to honoring self. And what I've come to realize, like in my own journey, is everything is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And it's
Hmm.
like every time we tell ourselves, you know what, they matter more than I do, we're
Yeah,
basically saying we don't matter. And
exactly.
then we have this whole culture, this whole lineage, and now I'm specific to women, where there's been this deep feeling of unworthiness, deep feeling of not belonging, deep feeling of not being loved, deep feeling of not being valued. And then we settle for toxic relationships. We settle for toxic workplaces. We settle for toxic health. We settle for crappy quality of life and health and all the things like even our imam talks about. And I believe there's this version of life that like God intends us to be happy. God
Right.
intends us to be fulfilled. God intends us to be joyous, but we cannot have a joyous life if we don't put joy within ourselves first. We have to
Correct.
be willing to say, you know what? No. Am I doing this because I should do this? And I talk about the word shoulding, like I'm always shooting on myself, like I should be doing this, I should be doing this. And how many of us are living through life just constantly in that shooting stage? Or are we actually saying, you know what? This doesn't lift me up. This
Mhm.
doesn't bring me joy. This doesn't bring me happiness. This doesn't bring me fulfillment. And how often do we start calibrating our life? Because if we're constantly at that stage of looking at life and saying, I should be doing this, and I should be doing that, and I should be honoring everybody else but me, then we have a life filled with emotional baggage in our bodies. We have a life full of resentment, full
Right.
of unhappiness, full of like just living life, kind of that victim consciousness of always putting ourselves last. And it's amazing. And you talk about breast cancer, you talk about grief and loss. That was your lesson. For me, it was divorce and like letting go of this illusion of what I was supposed to be. Just all
Right.
beautiful. But ultimately, it's really looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what? I love myself and I'm proud of who I am today. And how many of us can actually honestly look at ourselves and like feel good in our bodies, feel good in that emotional home within ourselves, knowing that we actually mattered. And it's not about mattering to you or mattering to the spouse or mattering to our kids. It's I have to matter to me
Exactly.
because when I matter to me, I matter. And then everyone else will just either they'll come along for the ride or they won't come along for the
Right.
ride. But I always tell my clients, like, what other people think about you is none of your business, which is really, really hard, pill to swallow. But it's like, what is the point of life if you can't honor you? Because we're all given this beautiful gift on this planet to be just taking this gift of our bodies and to take care of them and to nurture them. And Dr. Shell, I want to talk about this whole burnout and kind of this with women specifically and kind of women's health. If you can kind of shed that medical perspective
Sure.
of what happens in our bodies, kind of premenopause, postmenopause, how that correlates to burnout, stress. If you can kind of give us some tips
Sure.
or some, tools around that, that would be incredible as well.
Absolutely. So, just to comment real briefly on what you said, joy and happiness is our birthright.
Mm,
And if women, men know this, by the way, if women can actually claim this,
yeah,
I think a lot of women's lives would change.
absolutely.
It is our birthright, and this is what God and, like you said, Imam talks about this. So let's talk a little bit about women's health, right? So let's kind of just identify the different stages. So we've got the reproductive years, and for this audience, we're going to start with sort of like the perimenopause and the menopausal years. So in perimenopause, you're kind of, if you had to give it a decade, it's like around 35 to 45-ish, right? And then you've got the perimenopausal state, and then menopause, the average age is about 51.5 is the median age. So it can happen anytime from 40 to about 55. What's happening in perimenopause? So what is truly happening is there's a huge amount of hormonal fluctuation that is happening. So many women feel like they're losing themselves. They're
Mm,
told, oh no, you're fine, or it's just stress, or it's just aging. It's just part of what your body's going to go through. We just have to deal with it. But what's actually happening is profound. From about 35 onwards, your hormones are going to begin to shift, not collapse overnight, but it's going to fluctuate. Estrogen will become erratic. Progesterone declines much earlier than estrogen. So you become what's called estrogen dominant. And for those of you who might want to just look things up later, look up estrogen dominance. If you are not menopausal, you'll relate to a lot of those symptoms. Testosterone, which nobody talks about, declines in the woman's body very sharply. Now we think, oh, testosterone is a man's hormone. Nope. We all need all of the hormones. We just need it in different quantities. So testosterone is important for your stamina, muscle mass, brain function, mental clarity, motivation, as well as libido. All important things. Your cortisol becomes very dominant because that's the time that a lot of women are feeling very, very stressed. So, what happens with stress is your adrenal glands, which sit on top of our kidneys, are going to produce cortisol. And you're going to start going into this fight or flight mode, which we've all heard of. But physiologically, what's happening is the adrenals are in overfunction. And then what happens, and I see these women all the time that they did not listen and their adrenals are now crashing. So
mm,
they're unable to even produce a stress response, which is why they're exhausted. They are not able to function properly. You'll have symptoms that show up as brain fog, sleep disruption, mood changes, anxiety, weight redistribution and weight gain, and then just loss of strength and resilience. And the sad part is women are just dismissed because these symptoms don't always show up on a standard lab panel. So, I hear women come in, and usually I am the eighth doctor that people will see. Why?
mm,
Because they've gone to so many doctors, no answer. And why is that? Because in functional medicine, we take our time to listen, we take time to be with the patient, we take time to really dig deep into the root cause, and most of the times insurance doesn't want to pay for it. So they'll go to their primary care and another primary care, an endocrinologist and an OB-GYN, and then they're just frustrated because there are no answers, and they've been told your labs are within normal limits, but women need to listen to themselves,
mm,
your own advocate, listen to your body, because these are all early signs. The tragedy is not the biology. The tragedy is that women are not educated about their own physiology. So instead of understanding what's happening, they start questioning themselves, like something's wrong with me.
mm,
When in all honesty, nothing's wrong with us. It's just our physiology. And we need to just realize what's going on in our bodies, get the right education, get the right advocacy, get the right practitioner, and the right support, and be gentle with yourself. Be kind to yourself. I always tell my patients, when you are thinking about whether you can or cannot do this, think about this. If this was my daughter or my son, what would I want them to do?
Mm,
That's the answer. You're going to want them to take care of themselves, but you don't take care of yourself. We don't take care of ourselves. We're much harder on ourselves. So that's your perimenopause. Menopause is when almost everything is going to crash down, including your estrogen. So when estrogen also comes down, a lot of that time period is when you'll have your hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disruption, vaginal dryness, brain fog, and you just can't think properly. Because a lot of entrepreneurial women, women who are in high functioning
mm,
physicians, when they go through menopause, and this is a statistic, it's a worldwide statistic, almost 50% of them either lose their position or retire early because they can't handle all the symptoms and their role, and nobody's giving them compassion. So in the UK, there's actually menopause relief and menopause absences that they can have.
mm,
In the United States, we don't have that.
mm. So it's like on a cultural level, it's
Yes,
just not even seen as part of like it's almost like society contributes to the symptom and
exactly.
makes us wrong. And now we make ourselves wrong and we say, okay, there's something wrong with me.
Something's
I'm
wrong with
not good enough. We put ourselves in the
right.
back seat and the cycle
Exactly.
continues. So, what are like a couple of steps that we can take, or how would you educate us? What are some steps? So let's say, let's say I'm struggling with brain fog and I'm going like am I stressed? I know I'm stressed out, even though there's nothing to be stressed out about. So there's something going on. Let's
Right.
say the lab reports are normal, but intuitively something feels wrong. What would you advise someone like me, or what are a couple of steps that you would share with us to start being empowered in this area of health and wellness?
Sure. So the real thing is, to know what the tools are out there,
Mhm.
right? So the first and foremost thing is you want to get to the root cause of why you're having these symptoms. Number one, identify the symptoms.
Mm,
Number two, realize that this is part of your physiology. It is not your fault. It is not in your head. It is not something you're thinking of or dreaming of. And when your doctor tells you your labs are within normal limits, realize they're not doing functional lab testing and they're not looking for optimization of your hormones and labs. They are looking for this range that is established to be normal if you're alive and able to wake up in the morning. That's not where we want to be. We want to be optimized, right? So, and we can do this, Karishma, if you want. If your audience would like this, we can send them a list of the labs that they should get
yeah.
with their provider,
Okay.
whoever their provider might be. They'll usually get pushback and they'll say, well, you don't need this. Why do you need this? And you need to say, I want this and I would really like to look at these levels. If you don't find a provider that does that, then look for a functional medicine provider because this is going to be standard for functional medicine. And I'll send those, but you want to look at your thyroid and optimize it, not let it just be within normal limits. You want to look at your hormones. I usually will do serum levels as well as saliva levels, and I look at both together along with the symptoms to make sure that we have a pattern that we can recognize and then treat that. I also always look at salivary cortisol, which is looking at your circadian rhythm. Are you in fight or flight? Are you in rest or rejuvenate? Or are you completely shut down? Because each one requires a different protocol. I always look at inflammatory markers. I always look at hemoglobin A1C, fasting insulin, and the like. And then, of course, your usual metabolic panel. So there's a long list of things that you want to look at. There are people who have Hashimoto's and autoimmune conditions
Mhm.
that come into my office in their 50s and 60s, and they have never been told this. They've just struggled all their life. So people are suffering in silence and are not being educated. So really start getting educated, and you can get plenty of videos for free on my YouTube. You can get plenty of podcasts that I've done. All of that is widely available on my website, etc. But get educated first, and then be your advocate. Demand what you deserve. First, with your education, you'll know what you need. Secondly, what you need, you deserve, and go get it. Find someone who's going to give it to you. So, usually, I'll prescribe bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. For women, I was on bioidentical progesterone starting at 35 because I was really in estrogen dominance. Look at that. Look at testosterone. Testosterone is not your enemy. Testosterone is your friend. Just don't overtreat. Nobody should be overtreated. So, you want to get a practitioner who believes in the lowest, most effective dosing. You don't want to get high dosing. That's not good. More is not better. So, balance your body. Now, that's one thing when I say from a medical perspective. The other tools are easy. Sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. I'm always with this Aura ring. My sleep score has to be over 85 or 90, or I know I'm not doing my job, right? I look at my data. So sleep, easy. You need to get at least about 7 to 8 hours of night. Hydration. Take your body weight in pounds divided by two. You need that much water minimal. Reduce caffeine. Reduce stress as much as possible. And if you can't reduce stress, get some tools in place. Journaling, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, learning how to do box breathing like we did at the beginning of this session, exercise. Ladies, at our age, whether you're 35 or 65, it doesn't matter, anywhere in between, women need strength training. Gone are the days that you just go running for an hour a day and you think you've gotten everything done. No, we need to build muscle because we have to protect our bones. These are the lifestyle measures that we need. And when you do these basic foundational lifestyle measures, everything else is icing on the cake, and you'll be able to receive all of the treatments that are really important to you. I hope that answers that question.
That was awesome. Yes. And everyone good with me sending an email out with these tools? Okay, so let's all commit to taking this tool. So the empowerment here is the practice. Okay, so it's not just I'm going to wait for it to come in my inbox and shove it away for some other day, but intentionally, am I taking time? Am I seeking out that support? Am I seeking out, there's that mental support, right? So the first thing you said, Dr. Shell, was demand what you deserve. So the first piece is like telling ourselves, I do deserve this. I deserve a life that's happy, healthy, free, vibrant, joyous, free, right? So doing the work that is needed to ensure that you are aligning to that, even if it doesn't feel like you deserve it today, but like I want to move in that direction of empowerment. And the second piece is let me take this tool, this email that I'll forward you all, and ensure that I'm making time, I'm prioritizing getting in front of my healthcare practitioner and asking for those labs and then going deeper into, hey, am I optimizing? Is my body optimized? And the truth is, you already kind of know it is or it isn't. Do you
Mhm.
wake up exhausted or do you wake up happy, healthy, refreshed? Like your body's already telling you. What we're doing is we're just slowing down and saying, yes, it is telling me something. And now I'm going to use these tools to progress and move into the direction of what I want. Let's see here. Okay, so I know we're almost the top of the hour. If you guys can hang out with us for just a few minutes, I know we're a little bit kind of close to 11 o'clock Central Time, but I'd love to just open it up for Q&A and any questions you all have. Before I do that, I just want to talk about Empowered Desi for a quick moment. And Empowered Desi, again, is a community that was created to really help women like you be empowered. I think the days of like sacrificing and putting ourselves last and trudging through it and just like think settling for a life that's less than is in our past. And we have an opportunity to get together today to really come together, to connect through community, to connect through vulnerability. Dr. Shell, the energy you brought forth of just being so open, so raw, we need a space where we can be that. We need a space where we can just be women and just talk about what's really happening and how to navigate through those challenges that life brings forth through us and know that there's a way into kind of a happier space. And if that resonates with you at all, I would love for you to just connect with me. And I'm going to drop my number in the chat here. If you're like, hey, Karishma, just tell me about Empowered They See, just reach out to me. Either will align with you or it won't. What I'm telling you is, this is an energy, a community where we do go raw. We are open. We are vulnerable. We desire sisterhood. We desire community. And the intention of the community is to really get out of that old way of being, of exhaustion, of stress, of burnout, and really live our life and demand that life that we want on every level. And that's the intention of the community. So if it resonates with you, do reach out to me and we'll connect and I'll tell you about what that looks like and how and what next steps to take. So with that being said, I want to just open up the chat for about 10-15 minutes and just allow you all opportunities to ask any questions that may not have been answered already in our talk today. So I'm going to invite you all to just unmute yourself, raise your hand, and I'll call on you and we can, I'd love to just answer those questions for you.
There's nothing that you can't ask.
Okay, what questions do you all have? Alia, I saw a couple of questions from you a few minutes ago. Have those been answered, Alia Shivji? Or is there anything that you want to ask that has not already been answered if you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, so I've been trying to focus since we've been talking, Karishma, like over the last couple of months. I have been trying to focus more on like positivity and self-care and putting myself first when I can. But I have some family members who are in that older generation and in that older mindset. And I am like, I'm in a place of dependence right now just because of like my divorce situation. And I really struggle with people in like kind of using me as like, oh, you don't have your kids, you can look after my kids. Or, oh, you don't have your kids with you, they're with your ex-husband, you can do this for me or you can do that for me. And whenever I push back, it's very like, um,
Not received well. Mhm.
yeah. And because like it's very hard to set boundaries with like that older generation. They don't respond so well to that. They can be very they can take criticism very personally, even when it's put in like very gentle ways. And there's very much a, you must do this kind of mindset. Like you must go to Brodekhane every day. You must like, do this seva or like do this for your brother or like, and it's very hard to push back on that. And I was just wondering if you could think of any like ways to deal with that. 'Cause I don't think that they're doing it like in a way that's harmful.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to be helpful, but it's impossible to do self-care when nobody will let you
Mm,
kind of deal.
mm.
So I was just wondering what you thought about that. It's something I've been struggling with a lot lately.
Karishma, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I would love to hear your perspective and I'll chime in as well. Yeah. And Alia and I connected just a few months ago. So
Um,
she's been a part of the community. Yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective and I'll chime in as well.
I think the first word that comes to mind, Alia, is boundaries,
Mm,
right? And it's tough. Setting boundaries is tough. But I think what we are going through in our culture is not just us setting boundaries, it's educating others on what our boundaries are without guilt and without us feeling like we are doing something that is just completely against what we've been taught and what is correct. I had to do that, right? I had to do that, and I learned the hard way. I had to do that for myself in many ways, and it's a daily conversation that I have with myself. And my sisters laugh at me because I actually have a conversation with myself. I say Shel, and I talk to myself. But it's not because I'm crazy. It's because you have to hear your own self tell yourself how worthy you are and how important your health and well-being is. The first step, Alia, and everybody else, including me, is going to be to first believe yourself that it's okay for you to say no.
mhm.
And it's actually healthy for you to say no. And actually, you're doing them a favor by saying no. And you don't have to say no, you can say not now. If no is hard, you can say not now. One of the things that I've learned from a dear friend of mine is this, and please try to listen to this because it has changed my life. After me, you come first. Think about that really, really closely. After me, you come first. So, yes, you come first, but after me. Because if I'm not here, I can't do anything for you. Um, that's what I would say, Karishma.
Beautiful. Thank you. Amazing. And I think the biggest thing for me is the word self-love. Self-love.
Hmm.
And it's literally just and it's I used to think self-love was really about everybody else. It has nothing to do with everybody else. It has everything to do with me.
Yeah.
It's in, as we naturally start putting ourselves first, and it's so hard. Okay, I'm not going to pretend it's easy. It's so hard. We're literally breaking down, and this is why this is so important, everyone. And I hope you can really receive this, everyone that's here. When we start putting ourselves first, the first person that's listening is you. you're starting to tell yourself, oh my God, I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy of my love. And so many of us are so good at loving everybody else in our life, but we ultimately are awful at loving on ourselves. And just the way you would love on your child that's like small and sick and little, like think of your little newborns if you have children, think of the people that you love the most, and just like you would take them, and your little child is sick and they have a flu, they have a fever, and you drop everything. You're like, I am here for you because you are sick. There's a part of us that also needs that love. That
Mhm.
love is needed first and foremost by me. So when I say I matter, right? I matter. And I'm telling myself I matter. And the truth is, I already know where I haven't put myself first. My body's already been telling me. It's been pushing through it. It's been exhausted. It's been burnt out. It's been whatever, whatever, whatever. And those signals have been there. The signs have been there. And I say, oh my God, I matter, and I matter, and I matter. What happens is that no muscle starts becoming easier. It's never easy, but it starts becoming easier. You say, you know what? I know you really think I should go to Jamaat Khana right now in the morning, and I know that's really important. My body just really needs to sleep right now. And my connection to Mola, my connection to God is my connection. Thank you so much for suggesting that to me. You see, and now it becomes about like, I hear you, I acknowledge you, but what I need is this. I know you think I should go see brother, but what I really need right now is rest. And it's what's amazing is, so the first part is a self-love piece, but the other part, Alia and everyone else here, is we're also training everybody else in our life what is important. And the word other second, you talked about the word Shalina came up was something else. For me, it was modeling. I think you used like the word no, or what was the word that you used? Sorry.
Yeah.
Boundaries. Okay, boundaries. So boundaries are the first part, but the other part is the modeling. So when I start showing myself and everyone else in my community that I matter, guess what I'm teaching my daughter? Guess
Yeah.
what I'm teaching my mother? Guess what I'm teaching my sisters? Guess what I'm teaching my friends? I am giving them permission to also matter. And that, my friends, is how we break this generational lineage trauma of not being worthy, not being deserving, not being enough. We start unapologetically putting ourselves first, and we start in a respectful way, in a kind way, and we start showing everybody else in our life, you know what? And I tell my daughter knows she matters too. And she has been taught through my modeling that it's okay to take space and time and to rest because her mother also takes space and time to rest. And that is the biggest lesson because we're here to do it for everybody else. This is how we really do this for everybody else by showing up with action one day at a time.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. It really is. I mean, think about the generations that are coming after us. And
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
have a
And as a
responsibility.
community.
Exactly. We have a responsibility, not only to ourselves, but to those coming after us and to others in the community that perhaps are in a rut that they can't get out of. So once we model this, like you said, Karishma, we can then pull others out of it. And that is what's going to feel incredibly satisfying, gratifying, and just, this is kind of what we're here for, is to help others. Yeah.
Absolutely. There was one more question for Anna. Uh, would you like to ask the question that you had on the chat a couple minutes ago?
Oh yeah, and this might be a little bit personal to my situation, but first of all, I just, when I got on the call, I was late, so I just want to say thank you for this platform. And I think that, Karishma, your energy continuously is very uplifting. Shalina, I love everything that you do, but my question was personal to me, so we can t take it offline. Because I am also a breast cancer survivor and I had hormone positive cancer, so I'm really curious about like I know about functional medicine. I haven't tapped into it just because it's not covered under insurance. But what I want to learn more is how can functional medicine especially help me understand the kind of cancer that I had, and what are some of the steps that I can take for like in terms of preventative recurrence, because I've had it twice.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it was hormone positive. And so now at the age of 47 and with premenopause or perimenopause, all of that hitting up. Like I just don't know how to move and in what direction. But that's something I can contact you about, or you can say something about it right now if you want.
I'm happy to just give an overview because I think that, it applies to a lot of women, whether it's breast cancer or any autoimmune diseases or anything else. Now, with breast cancer, of course, hormonal dysregulation becomes really important because at least for the first 5 years, you really want to stay away from the estrogen, progesterone, especially if it's hormone positive. The thing about it is what I've realized, recognized, and done myself through the breast cancer journey as well as beyond, because there is a whole cancer recovery phase, which is for the next 30 years of your life or longer, right? Is what am I going to do to help prevent this from coming back, right? That is something that's always going to be in the back of your mind, but it also applies to women who've never had it but want to prevent it from coming. I will say to get the body's physiology and biology at the most optimized state. So, what does that mean? Minimize stress as much as possible. That's going to be your biggest one. Accentuate your sleep. Really protect your sleep. You got to protect it, right? It is such a vital force. That's the only time that your mitochondria is going to heal when you go into deep sleep, when you go into theta. Mindfulness, meditation, stress management, all of that piece. Nutrition, hydration, making sure you're reducing the oxidative stress, which leads to chronic inflammation, and getting on the right antioxidants, getting on the right nutrients, getting on the right, types of supplements if they are needed in your body because you're not eating all the things. And even if you eat a perfect diet, our food doesn't have the same kind of nutrients that it did 50 years ago. So supplements are important. Doing certain things, there's a product called DIM, diindole methane. It reduces the conversion of estrogen to the bad estrogen metabolites. It keeps it healthier. So that's a very important, you can look that up later, but DIM is very important for all women to be on, not just breast cancer survivors. Optimizing your thyroid, your cortisol, your hormones, if possible, and doing it in a way that's safe for you based on what you're going through. And happiness and joy. Oh my
Yeah.
God, there's like no replacement for happiness,
Yeah.
joy, and connection.
Mhm.
So when you are disconnected, and this study has been done, when you are lonely and feel disconnected, you may as well smoke 10 cigarettes a day. That's how much you're affecting your body and your
Mhm.
chronic inflammation. So connect with others, connect with yourself, feel happy, feel joy. Remember, it's your birthright. And when you have all of those things, the life that we're going to live is going to be filled with the kinds of days and moments that we want. And then I'd rather live that for 20 years than live something else that I'm not happy with for 60. So ultimately, we do our best, and lifestyle modification is at its core. All the things that I mentioned, exercise and strength training is preventive. So when you bring your fasting insulin down, and when you don't have a high hemoglobin A1C, your health is going to be far better. You're going to have less chances for Alzheimer's. In functional medicine, we call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Okay.
Wow.
Remember, sugar is your enemy. Okay. Toxins is your enemy. Detoxification, having a normal, healthy gut is extremely important. There's a gut-brain connection. So if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, look at your gut first. Before you look at here, there are more neurotransmitters in your gut than there are in the brain. So I'm just giving you some tips here because we're running out of time, but we could certainly have an entire 2-hour discussion on just this because the tools are very simple and yet they are things that people are not educated about. But they're
Mhm.
simple. It doesn't take a lot of money or a lot of testing to get there. I hope that helped you, Verona.
Oh, tremendously. Thank you so much.
Very well.
Absolutely. All right. Amazing, everyone. Everyone put in one takeaway in the chat today. One takeaway that you will take with you and actually take action on.
Mhm.
Because this is your accountability, right? This isn't, hey, I spent an hour and change on a Sunday morning, and then once we're done, like we're back to, right, the old lifestyle. What is one way and one kind of piece of accountability? Like I commit to what? Or my takeaway from this, write it down because what we write down, the last thing we write down is actually what we remember. Okay. And yes, I love that, Rosina. Being happy and joyous is my birthright. It's what Hazri Mom wants for us. It's what what God intends for us, and we have to give that to ourselves. We have to make that unapologetically the goal every single day. One of the things I tell my clients, as they're talking about increasing business and revenue and money and blah, 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 all that financial stuff, one of the first things we do is we create a new definition for success. Because for me, my old definition, and I'm someone who's been burnt out many times. My corporate burnout actually led me to being an entrepreneur. And guess what? In 6 months of having my own business, massively burnt out, 6 months, 6 weeks under the covers, like I couldn't get out of bed. So it's just like I've been there kind of through that whole journey myself. But one of the first things we do is like create your own definition of success.
Yeah.
What does success look like in your life? What do you want your life to look like? Because if you say, you know what, success for me equals joy, success for me equals peace, success for me equals love, success for me equals connection, and you start using that as your calibrator every single day, when I start giving myself permission to be joyous, my entire life evolves. And what do you think happens with money, abundance, health, prosperity, relationships? Everything thrives because now I am unapologetically saying, you know what? I deserve joy. I deserve love. I deserve connection. And I have to give it to myself first before anyone. I can expect anyone to give it to me, because if I'm not fun, free, loving, joyous in myself, you can pour all the love on me and I have no capacity to receive it. And that's another conversation. Dr. Shell, what is one takeaway that you would want these women, these audience members to take with them?
Listen to your body and listen to those whispers before they become loud. Connect with yourself, connect with your inner self, outer self, but really your higher self, and listen because it knows and it's trying to whisper to you, it's time. The time is now. The time is now. Don't wait another day to implement a lot of this self-love, self-care, and self-prioritization.
Amazing. And for those of you that wish to continue this journey of empowerment and connection, reach out to me on WhatsApp. You've got my number here in the chat. I'd love to connect with you. The intention isn't, there's no sale. I coach for a living. There's no money involved. This is just literally a community of women that really want to become better together, that understand the value of this and wish to evolve within themselves. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for all the connections, the chats, the questions. Dr. Shell, thank you so much for sharing your Sunday morning with us. It has been an honor to get to know you in this space and personally. And I'm just so grateful for your time this morning.
Of course, and it was so great to be here, Karishma. You're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It's just so selfless and so wonderful to have women have you. If anybody needs to reach out to get more education, at least, they can just go to my website and it'll give them links to my podcasts and everything else. And again, just be educated. I can write it down in the chat if you'd like, and just connect with Karishma. She's awesome. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. And you guys will be getting an email from me with those little tips and tricks and kind of what to look for from Dr. Shell. So thank you all so much for being here, and have an amazing, joyous, fun Sunday. I'll
All
talk to you
right.
all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.